When you're working as your own boss, you're also responsible for paying your own taxes. But what does that even mean? What kind of taxes are you responsible for, and when and where do you pay them? Taxes are complicated, and to make this topic a little bit easier to understand, I have invited attorney and tax pro Braden Drake to chat with us today. But real quick, if you don't know who I am, I'm Katie, and my business partner Alana and I have teamed up to help other artists like ourselves make more money doing what they love. Now hold on to your butts, because taxes are about to get a lot easier to tackle. We have Braden Drake here with us today to talk about all things taxes. And I'm so excited to have you here because all of our students want to know, what the heck do I do when it comes to taxes? That is a very scary part of going into business for yourself, for artists. So hi, and can you introduce
Hi.
yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. As you said, my name is Braden. My background, I'm actually an attorney. So I am originally from Indiana, so Midwesterner, moved to Southern California for law school. I took and passed the bar exam after that, and then I got a master's degree in tax law. So I technically am a tax attorney, but I usually tell people I'm a business attorney and tax professional because I do kind of both sides of that coin, so to speak.
Amazing. Well, so excited to have you and your wisdom here. We need it. We definitely need it. So I'm just going to dive right in and ask you the most burning questions that our students have. And the first one is just, what kind of taxes are you responsible for when you start your own business? And what do you kind of need to be prepared for?
Yeah, so we have several different types of taxes, and this is what people probably get the most tripped up on. So, generally speaking, in the US, we have two kinds of taxes. We have income type taxes, and then we have consumption based taxes. So, income taxes are based on how much we earn, how much we bring into the household. So, the more money we make, the more taxes we pay, right? And then consumption taxes are taxes on money that we spend. So sales tax is a consumption tax. So we have income tax, we have sales tax. And then more specifically, when it comes to income taxes, we pay federal income taxes to the US government. That's where most of the tax goes. And we have our regular income tax, which are those tax brackets you've probably seen before. But then also we have to pay for our fair share of Social Security and Medicare. When we're employed, our employer takes care of all of that for us. When we're self-employed, we have to pay that on our own. And that's what we call self-employment tax. And then we also have state income tax if you are in one of the majority of states that does collect that. So income tax side, we have federal income tax, self-employment tax, state income tax. And then over here, we have sales tax, which may or may not be an issue for you. And we can talk about that too.
Woo, yeah. I think when people hear that, they're like, okay, I don't know if I have the capacity to start a business because this sounds so insane. What do you say to people that are just like completely overwhelmed by what you
Yeah.
just said?
Yeah, what I would say is this is all totally doable, right? Like you don't need to become a tax expert yourself. You just have to know what your obligations are. There are really just a few of those. You need to be saving money to pay quarterly taxes. So when you are self-employed, no one's withholding tax and sending it to the government for you. It's your obligation to do that on a quarterly basis. And the nice thing is on that income tax side of things, which is where most of these are, the income tax and the self-employment tax, we don't really think about those separately because it's just like a lump sum payment that we send to the IRS. So really, we pay quarterly tax to the IRS, and then sometimes we pay quarterly tax to the state, although most of the time state taxes are so low that a lot of times people can get away with not paying quarterly taxes to the state. So we pay quarterly taxes to them, and then we need to, so we got to save and pay that. And then the sales tax is kind of like our second conversation.
So we'll definitely touch on sales tax because I think that one confuses people. But before we do, I'm curious if there's a difference between how you pay taxes if you're day job, if you're just doing this as like a side hustle, if you're starting an art business and you still have your 9 to 5, versus if you are completely going out on your own, you don't have anything else that you're doing but this business? Is there a different way that you approach it or that it works?
Yeah, kind of. It works the same way. Just the question of whether you're going to need to pay quarterly taxes is a little bit different. So, to give an example, if you have a W-2 job and you get paid a salary and every year you file your taxes, the first thing you need to think is like, do I typically get a refund? Do I expect to get a refund?
Mhm.
So if you get a refund, it means that you're paying more in taxes than you need to. So when you get a refund from the IRS, all that means is that your employer withheld more tax than they needed to. So you're getting some of that money back. The way this works is, let's assume that on your business, you only end up owing about $1,000 because you're not making a whole lot in your business yet. If you have a W-2 job where you would normally expect to get a $2,000 refund, well, now they're going to credit part of that refund to the taxes that your business owes. So instead of getting $2,000 back, you get $1,000 back. So for a lot of people who have full-time jobs, they can manage a little while without paying quarterly taxes. They don't even really realize that they need to, and they don't end up owing, and they don't think it's a big deal. But where this then becomes an issue is once you start getting profitable, once your business profits $10,000, $20,000, now the tax you owe is going to exceed the refund you would be getting. And that's when we really want to start saving and paying those taxes in advance.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's helpful. What about self-employment tax? If you have a job over here that you're getting a W-2 from, is that taking care of all the self-employment tax, or do you have to pay that for your side hustle as well?
Yeah, you still have to pay it for your side hustle. So what I do, so I run online programs where I teach my students like how to do all of this step by step. And what we simply do is we come up with an effective tax rate. So how much money should you be saving on all of your business income? So we combine all those taxes I talked about, all the income taxes together. And I tell you, 15%, 20%, 30%, whatever that is, you save 20% of all your business income, and then that gets paid to the IRS. So we're not really distinguishing between self-employment and income tax. You owe both of them. We're lumping them together to make it simpler.
Let's talk a little bit about sales tax, because a lot of our students have product-based businesses that's at least like a small portion of their, or like one income stream in their business. So how do we know when, or like what sales tax applies to and when we should be paying it? If you can give the lowdown on that, that would be so
Yes.
helpful.
There are a few things that we have to consider. So historically, I'm giving you the background first. We only really had to think about sales tax based on the physical presence of our business. So if our business is located in California and we don't have any physical location, meaning we ourselves don't work in another state, we don't own an office in another state, we don't have employees in another state, we only have to think about our home state. And so we would look into what are the sales tax rules in California. That since has changed. In 2018, there was a Supreme Court case that passed that now said that we can be subject to sales tax in other states if we have enough of what they call an economic nexus. Now, don't get overwhelmed just yet, because I looked at the rules in all 50 states. Luckily, some other people, already summarized that for me, so it wasn't too difficult. And that economic test, the lowest kind of threshold in any state was either $100,000 in sales or 200 transactions. So for example, if I live in California and that's the rule that Illinois has, then I only need to worry about Illinois sales tax if I'm either selling $100,000 worth of product in that state to people who live in that state, or if I'm doing at least 200 transactions in that state. Now, if that's like the volume that you're doing like across the whole country, you probably don't have to worry about it at all. You have sales all over the place. But once you get to that threshold in any one state, then you need to look at their specific sales tax rules. So that's the first issue, is you have to figure out where you owe sales tax. And then from there, we figure out, okay, on what do we owe sales tax and how much do we need to be collecting?
Do you have any kind of information about what kind of products we do need to be charging sales tax for?
Yes. So pretty much any kind of physical product. I think there are a handful of states. I know like Alaska off the top of my head. There are like three other states that don't. Oregon does not have sales tax. There are a handful. So you can just Google like,
Hmm.
does my state have sales tax? So there are a few that don't have any sales tax. That's great. All of the other states, they charge sales tax on physical goods. So, like have a planner in front of me. I got a book. I have my cell phone, my microphone. These are all physical products, right? All subject to sales tax. The kind of iffy area is digital downloads. So let's say, for example, I just went on Creative Market last week and bought a new template for like to create a course textbook. So
Yep.
it's a digital download.
Hmm.
Some states require sales tax on that and some states do not. So you want to research, does my state charge sales tax on digital downloads? That's your first question. And then your second question, if applicable, is does my state charge sales tax on services? Some states do and some states do not. And the states that do, they may only have sales tax on some types of services. I have a friend who does oil paintings and you
Hmm.
can commission work from her. So in that example, she might consider that a service, right? Because you're hiring her to paint something. That's a service. But most states are going to actually deem that to be a product because she's providing a service to give you an end product, in which case the whole value of that painting would be subject to sales tax. So these are the things that you want to look at. If you're just selling prints and shipping them, that's the physical good. If you're selling digital downloads, it's a digital good. If you're doing kind of like a hybrid service product kind of thing, then you need to look into the rules on that in your state as well.
Okay. Is there like any concise place to go, like where people need to look this up, or do you just recommend that they kind of connect with a local CPA and have some guidance in that arena? What do you think?
Yeah, so there are some good blogs out there. Specifically like TaxJar has some good ones. I think it's Alvera is the other one, and they're like
Okay.
they're kind of like QuickBooks for sales tax, so they have good resources. You can also find a CPA that can help you, although I will warn people that there are a lot of CPAs who don't handle sales tax. They're either not well versed on it or they just don't do it. So you want to ask them about that upfront if it's something you want them to handle. But ultimately, it's kind of narrowing in on, in the legal field, we call them like, what are the issues we need to research? And for you, it's what states do I need to be collecting sales tax, and then on what do I need to be collecting sales tax, and you can kind of hone in on your research.
One of the hot button topics around taxes is deductions. That's one of the more
Yes.
fun parts. So, can you quickly explain what deductions are and which ones you find that people just aren't taking advantage of enough?
Sure. So a business deduction sounds obvious when I say it, but it deducts from our income, right? So if we make $10,000 and then we go spend $1,000 on something that is a valid business expense, now we have $9,000 in taxable business income. So that's how a deduction works. One kind of misconception I always like to address is that some people are under the impression that a deduction is a dollar for dollar tax benefit, but that's not the case, right? So if we pay 20% tax, if that's our tax rate, let's assume that we're making $10,000, 20% would be $2,000, right? So we would owe $2,000 in taxes. Now, if we spend $1,000 on our business, now we have taxable income of $9,000. I'm getting out my calculator now for my mental math advances. So 20% of that is $1,800. So, I mean, I should have been able to do that in my head. Essentially, what we're getting at
No
here is
judgment.
that, yeah, that $1,000 that we spent on the thing saved us $200 in taxes, not $1,000 in taxes, right? I always bring this up because every single year without fail, I see all sorts of people in the month of December saying like, what should I spend my money on to like get my tax deductions before the close of the year? And that I find really irksome because a lot of the time these people haven't paid their quarterly taxes. It's like, all right, well, if you go spend the $1,000 you did have, you saved a couple $100, but now you have no money to like pay your tax bill. So instead, we need
Whoops.
to ask ourselves, like, what are we already buying for our business? What do we really need for our business? And how do we make sure that we're getting deductions for those things? So with that in mind, Our general rule, according to the IRS, is that we may deduct ordinary and necessary business expenses. So it's super helpful definition, right?
Yeah, that's super intensely vague. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So they do a little bit of favors. Of course, there's all sorts of case law, which is we get into it like as a tax attorney, that's what we study. But generally speaking, an ordinary expense is one that is like typical in your industry. So, if you sell paintings, paintbrushes, paint, very obvious, ordinary business expenses. And then a necessary business expense, I always have found this definition to be kind of contradictory. They define necessary as something that's like helpful, but not like indispensable to your business. So an example I often give for that is like you can spend $2,500 on a laptop and the IRS isn't going to disallow that deduction by claiming that like $1,000 laptop would be just fine. Like you could argue, no, the $2,500 one, it's faster. It's going to help me get my work done quicker, right? Now, there is a line if you go spend $20,000 on a computer and all you're using is like Microsoft Word, then they might say unreasonable. But for the most part, that's not something that we have to be concerned with. So generally speaking, is it helpful and appropriate for the type of work you do in your industry?
And what about if you're like taking a client out to dinner and having your initial talk with them? Like, what are the rules on that?
Yeah, so meals are generally deductible, business meals, right? And then our question then is, what's a business meal? So typically we got to be like having a meal with a business associate or a potential client, right? It can't just be like lunch with ourselves. That's not typically deductible. So meals are yes. This is what I call one of our strict expenses. So it's one that the IRS requires you to have receipts on because meals are subject to abuse. So what I always recommend is whenever you take a meal deduction, you hold on to your receipt, note on the back of that who you met and what for, or you can upload a photo of it into your QuickBooks accounts. So I would say lunch with Katie to talk about a YouTube video for her group of artists. Like that's
Perfect.
what I would write on mine.
That's super helpful. Okay, just a couple more questions for you. What numbers should business owners be watching and paying attention to in their finances the most? What's most important to look at?
Oh boy, for me, it's profit, right? So it's all about profit. We're talking about the health of our business. Like revenue is fun, but profit is what pays the bills, right? So we have to have business profit to actually be able to pay ourselves, and paying ourselves is how we pay off our debts, pay for retirement, pay for our mortgage, our rent, our groceries. So at the end of the day, we have to focus on our profit. And then I also love to chat about KPIs. So we could always get into that, but I would imagine that you all probably cover that separately in your own education as well.
What advice do you have? I know we talked a little bit about feeling overwhelmed, but what would you say to someone who is completely new to business? The word business scares them. What kind of resources or tips would you point them to?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would tell these people is, first of all, you have to own the moniker of being a business owner, right? If you want to make money, you're not a hobbyist anymore. You're not a freelancer. You're a business owner. So that comes with some obligations that we have to get on top of. They don't need to be that scary. We're going to start with point number one. Ultimately, what you need to get started by doing, you need to start doing is basic bookkeeping. So what money am I making? What expenses do I have? We're going to set aside a little bit of money for taxes. Easy peasy, not a big deal. And that's how we're going to get started. As far as resources go, I have a lot of resources on my website. I'm about 185 episodes into my podcast, so lots of great content there. I have a blog, and then I also have a group program where I teach all of this in detail. What I should recommend, I don't have it in front of me, of course, but I do have a book as well, which you can grab a copy of at my website. We have a hardback book, ebook, audiobook.
Amazing. Well, I'll definitely link to all of those things down in the caption so everybody can get to those really quickly. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our friends with about taxes, legal things, anything you want to say?
I think that's about it. We do have a lot of exciting things coming up in the months of October and November. But I tend to launch my signature program in November to help people set up LLCs, S corps, bookkeeping, all of the things for the new year. So if you're interested in getting help with that, make sure that you follow along. But even if it's not the right time for you to join, we have so many free resources that you just gotta hop over to the website and check them out.
Perfect. What a cool resource you are in general, just helping with literally everything that our audience has questions about. Thanks so much to Braden for that enlightening info about taxes. We hope you're feeling so much more confident about what you need to be doing in your business, and make sure you go and check out all those amazing resources at bradendrake.com, which is linked below. Please hit subscribe and like this video if you are excited to see more helpful art biz related content like this. Now I'm gonna go do my taxes.